How you doing? So I thought I would do something I haven't done in a while today, and do a book talk. I've been reading a lot recently. I read a lot towards the end of the year, but not so much now that school has started back up. But there was a couple of books that I read that I just really want to share with you. But before I get started with that, I do want to let you know I do have a big project that I'm working on that will be ready to be out in February, middle of February. I'm going to let you know it's not an ASMR thing, and I know a lot of my subscribers come for that, and I feel like I say this a lot, but I'm a multi-dimensional personality, and so ASMR is one of the things that I really like, but this channel is meant to explore a lot of my personality, and so one of the this project that I want to do for you guys pertains to one of the more humanitarian aspects of my personality, so stay tuned for that. It's also going to prop up on my blog and on my main channel, which I will link down below for you. Okay? Cool. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about this book. Last semester, I took a philosophical class on death, dying, and the life beyond, which is a really cool class to take because it's religious, it's philosophical, it's scientific, it's psychological. It's a really cool class, and it pertains to everybody. Like, we are all gonna die, right? So, I mean, why not talk about our understandings of death? Prior to taking this class, I found a YouTube channel titled The Good Death, The Order of the Good Death. I should have looked that up before I started this. Anyway, it's a channel, I will link that below, that talks about all kinds of crazy things about death, different ways to handle death, the funeral industry, morbid minutes, as she calls them. Caitlin, who is the creator of this channel, where she discusses interesting or morbid things, sometimes about dead bodies in weird places. Sometimes it's about corpses that have kind of been lost, or there's a very interesting one about the body parts that have been lost throughout the years. But it's a really important channel because it makes you kind of embrace the way that you handle death. To kind of put this into context, last week my great-grandmother passed away. She was 100. Her 101st birthday would be in March, so she was quite old. But after having taken the Death, Dying, and Beyond class and viewing a lot of the videos from the Good Death channel, I had to kind of reevaluate what it meant to die to me. What does a funeral look like? And how do we, in Western culture, handle our dead and grieving in terms of people in Western cultures? A really big concept, really cool to think about. I already know how I want my death to be handled. So just a little bit. I want to be cremated. I do not want to be embalmed. I would like to be, I think it would be really cool to have an open air funeral pyre, from dust to dust kind of a thing. I want it to be a celebration of life kind of a thing. I don't want it to be a 10-minute put in the ground little ceremony and move on. Like, I want it to be a chance for people to celebrate and remember and grieve together. But I'm only 21, and here's to hoping I don't die anytime in the near future. Anyway, this book, that's what this is all about. So, the book, From Here to Eternity, by Caitlin Doughty. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. This is the book written by this woman, this incredible woman. She is doesn't say anything about her YouTube channel. Let me see if I can find it. Oops. Making lots of noise, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, but okay. She's the creator of the YouTube channel. She owns a funeral company with a good friend, and they focus on kind of revolutionizing, is that the right word? Death and funeral practices in the United States. So it's really, really cool. Anyway, this book, From Here to Eternity, Traveling the World to Find the Good Death. And so this book kind of goes to different places around the world, such as Colorado in the United States, Indonesia, Mexico, Spain, Japan, Bolivia, and a couple other places in the States. And each different place explores different places or different ways that people handle their dead. So there's a place in Colorado that has the open air funeral pyre. There's a place in Japan where after the body is cremated, the family goes through the remains and picks through the bones, and it's a very cathartic event, putting all of the fragments in a jar. There's a place, I think it's in Mexico, it's in Mexico, apart from Dia de los Muertos. They have skulls that they kind of use as deities in terms of appreciating the dead. That's a really cool chapter. Really fun and quirky. Indonesia, I think it's in Indonesia or Bolivia. It's a South American or Latin American country. But Indonesia's not, okay. Indonesia, or it's a Latin American country, I don't remember which. After the bodies have been buried, sometimes when a person dies, dependent on the funeral traditions, it can be an incredibly expensive kind of undertaking. So the body will stay in the house with the family. They won't go to a funeral industry or funeral home. They'll stay with the family, and you'll take care of them like they would if they were alive or just asleep or really sick. So they might sleep in the same bed as you. You might set a plate for them. You might bathe them, change their clothing, and then when you have enough money to do the funeral, you do that. And that I think it's in Indonesia that it's a big, huge thing, and all of the guests are invited, and it's a time of feasting and celebration, and of course there's mourning, but it turns into a lot of celebration, I guess is the biggest word. But also there's another place in the world where after the deceased has been buried, every 2 or 3 years, the families go back on a particular day. This is all the villagers go back to the cemetery, and they bring out their loved ones, and they bathe them, and they clean them, and they tidy them up, and then maybe they move them to another place, be it another mausoleum or another stone or another place, and then put flowers around it and maybe eat a picnic at that place. It's a really big kind of intimate interaction with the deceased. This book and this class really bring up the conversation of what changed in our aspect of death, of why do we have to be so far detached? Why do we have to be funeral home, embalming in the ground? And it's wild because in America, it wasn't always like that. I think it's around Civil War, turn of the century. When somebody died, the family took care of the funeral preparations. The person was laid out in the living room. The family changed them, cleaned them. They had the wake in the family's home. The family went and put them in the land, and even themselves shoveled dirt over back on the hole. And so it brings in this conversation of why has death become taboo? And Caitlin is just fantastic. If you watch her videos at all, she's lighthearted, but she's informed. She knows what she's talking about, but she presents the information in a way that's interesting. Each chapter kind of almost feels like a love letter to the culture, but then also to death and the people that have died, and to the world as a whole. I really, really recommend this book if you're looking to be challenged in terms of the things that are important to you, in terms of maybe life and death, maybe in terms of culture, maybe in terms of tradition, maybe in terms of even religion and how religion handles death. I highly recommend this book. It's heavier, I know, like, why does it feel weird to talk about death when it is such like a fundamental aspect of human life? Why don't we want to talk about somebody dying? Why don't we want to talk about the fact that somebody's not going to be here anymore? So I think we need to start having that conversation. And I definitely recommend that you get involved with Caitlin's YouTube channel and her videos, because at some point in your life, either you're going to die, which is going to happen, or you're going to have to arrange somebody's funeral. Be it your parents, be it a spouse, be it your siblings, you're going to have to arrange somebody's funeral and take care of their estate and other legal important information. That was my cats. I apologize. So you need to know what's going on, but you also need to be aware of the fact that you don't have to be embalmed. You don't have to strictly go to a funeral home to a particular degree. You don't have to have a casket. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. I think the average for a funeral is like $8,000 to $10,000, but I could be wrong. That's a lot of money for somebody who's dead. Just my own opinion. I know everybody's a little different. But it's really important to be informed about something that you're ultimately going to have to be involved with someday. And it's really good to be having this conversation. I know that the older I get, that means the older my grandparents get, which means I'm going to have to face their funeral someday. It means I'm going to have to face my parents' funeral someday, even my boyfriend or my husband's funeral someday. And I hope and I pray that it doesn't happen, but I might have to face a child's funeral someday, like maybe my child's funeral. I need to know these things. I need to be able to have these conversations so I don't feel like I'm an emotional wreck having to make big decisions. I know this kind of feels like a really heavy video and a very heavy topic, but I felt this would be a good book to talk about for book talks, because I've been away from book talks for a while. And I want you to know that when I do these, I'm not going to do fluff books. Like, there's going to be books with substance. I'm not going to just talk about a book that has no meaning to it whatsoever. I have a Christian theological book that I would like to talk about on here, but I'm going to hold out on that until I feel you guys out a little bit. That wasn't meant to be weird. I would love to know if you've read this book, if it's interesting to you. I should say that there are little illustrations in the book. One of my favorite, it's such a powerful picture, is this one right here. So it's like a whole giant being with the different stages of decomposition in it. It is so good. It's fun. So this is the one that I was kind of talking to you about. I just saw it. Regardless, Torojan in Indonesia. This is the particular culture that I was thinking of, where the deceased stay in the house with the family members until they can afford a funeral. But that's multiple others. There's also, and this image is printed on both the front and the back inside cover. And in Japan, is it Japan? I'm getting all of my places mixed up. I'm sorry. I think it is also Japan, in Tokyo. It's in a Buddhist area, but each of these different statues is either the remains of somebody or it's lit up in their honor. So all of the ones that are lit up are the ones that people are in there remembering and celebrating. It's a really cool concept, but I don't know if I'm explaining it and doing it justice. And it's not that thick of a book. So I think it's 200 pages maybe. I think I read this in about a day. And then again, I was also in I was in classes at that time, so yeah, 236, not very many pages. Again, I do recommend. It's a fun little book. But yeah, I'd love to know what you are reading, what's on your to-read list this year. I have a lot of big books. I have Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud. I have Rebecca by Daphne DeMar. I have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which is one of my favorite movies, but I've never read the book. I'm a little weird sometimes. I have a collection of Plato I want to read. I have, I'm drawing a complete blank. Oh, John Steinbeck. I have a lot of philosophical books I want to read, a lot of Christian books I want to read. So it's a hefty to read list, but I'm ready to take it on. But yeah, okay, this was short. I'd love to know your thoughts. Okay. Cool, thanks for stopping by. Oh, by the way, I will link my main channel somewhere, maybe in the description box if I can figure out to do it. It'll be on the screen. Go check it out. It's a little different than this, but as I've mentioned before, it's a lot like my blog, which I'll also link below. Yeah. And I want to give a big shout out to everybody who's just joined. You are so cool. So cool. And I'm so honored to have people that want to watch my stuff. And yes, I do know that this will not get as many views. Again, this is an outlet for my creativity, my personality. So if you like it, cool. If not, that's totally cool too. I'm hoping to do a lot of stuff that people like. Speaking of, I'm getting ready to go film another video that I think is going to be really cool, so I hope you're excited for that one. It might involve fake blood and latex. Yeah, I think it's going to go wild. But anyway, okay, I think that's all for now, guys. Ciao.